Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes. To keep in touch with us, use our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, which are all at Q and Review. That's CUEANDREVIEW. Or get in touch via information@qandreview.com. That's information@CUEANDREVIEW.com. Please like and share our podcasts and give us any constructive feedback.
From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 13th of December 2022, from the sports section. Celtic's Alistair Johnston says Canada mentality made him a fighter. Report by Liam Bryce. Alistair Johnston cuts an extremely relaxed figure upon arriving at the Celtic Park media room. Maybe it was the photo shoot in sub-zero temperatures, or perhaps it's something else about this young right-back whose life has suddenly taken a dramatic turn. Less than 2 years ago, Johnston was griding a path throughout the college circuit in his native Canada. In the past 21 days, he savoured a World Cup and signed for a club he afforded mythical status as a child. Not a bad few weeks by anyone's standards. If any of this has even slightly fazed him, he's doing a great job hiding it. Johnston answers questions with vibrant enthusiasm and a maturity beyond his 24 years, proving a fascinating listen. He grew up as a middle child in a family of 3 boys, so being competitive was non-negotiable. His family is of Scottish, English and Northern Irish heritage. He was told he was too small to make it. He reckons Scots and Canadians are very much alike. He used to be a centre midfielder. And, of course, he dabbled in ice hockey, but was only ever really interested in football. But that's not to say the rough and tumble of the ice rink didn't impart a few life lessons. It did, but not just on a young Alistair, who's quickly displayed a steely resolve that might just serve him well in this part of the world. Fighting in hockey comes with the sport. Every shot, every whistle, there's always pushing going on, Johnston explains. We tried to bring that into the national team in this last World Cup cycle, and it worked for us. A big thing in the CONCACAF region is, you go down to Honduras or Panama, and the night before the game, they'll pull the fire alarm on you. You play Mexico in the Azteca, 7,000 feet above sea level. You're gasping for breath. The term is always, you got CONCAF'd. All these countries find a way to use what they have to their advantage, and us Canadians are always so nice. So, we ask ourselves what we do best. We're an extremely tight group and we have the frozen north, so we started playing games there. We played Mexico in November out in Edmonton and it was minus 20 degrees at kick-off. Another thing is, if you want to push one of us, we'll do what we always do. It's in our DNA that we always stand up for each other, so if you lay a hand on one of us, the whole 11 and the bench is coming over. That's something we've started intimidating teams with. It also showed how collective a group we have. That was a really special thing. That's when I realised this Canadian team has a chance to be special. That plays into how we are as people, extremely fierce competitors who love a fight, don't like to get pushed around. If you're going to push me, I'll push you back. That sets the tone for what I bring to this club. Johnston certainly appears to have the mindset for it. Canada, with a bit of the Colton. He's also swiftly discovered that anonymity is left in the flight over when you sign for Celtic. I have some Scottish friends and they said it's like night and day, he said. It's hard to put into words how big this club is, and once I signed, even when there were rumours, my phone instantly went mental. I thought, okay, this is a bit of a step up from what I'm used to. Once I got here I was full, cap down low, just trying to experience what Glasgow's like on a Sunday morning, and people were very respectfully going, welcome to the biggest club in the world. This is a fan base that isn't just diehard for the club, it's also a very educated fan base. They know the players, they understand the game. That's something that I really enjoy as well, because I consider myself a student of the game as well, not only watching it as a player, but watching it as a fan as well. I can appreciate a fan base that understands what's going on out there and is fully invested in it. That's what I'm going to get here. Social media frenzies and strolls around the city are one thing, but there's perhaps no better way of understanding Celtic than simply 10 minutes with Callum McGregor. He'll have spoken to countless people and shaken just about as many hands on a hectic first day at the club, but it feels safe to assume a sit down with the skipper is the conversation Johnson will remember. He's everything you'd expect from a captain, Johnson admitted. He's a top lad. I met him on Monday morning, and I can see why he's one of the fan favourites for sure. He's a great guy, and I think he represents this club to a top level. And yes, he's kind of already broken down for me what it means to be a Celtic player, and what an absolute honour it is. You can tell this is a guy who just cherishes it. It doesn't matter what appearance it is right now for him at Celtic, every single one he cherishes. He's a great leader and someone to look up to. Those kind of guys have such an aura to them. They can really put things into perspective. You can just look at him and you can tell he's been there and done that. He commands that respect without being intimidating or anything like that. He's such a guy you feel open to talking to, and the ultimate definition of a leader. One of those guys you go to war with every day. That's what I look for in a captain, and he's just the perfect example of what this club represents. He does a perfect job of representing this club to the entire world. I'm lucky to be his teammate. And that report was by Liam Bryce. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 13th of December 2022, from the sports section. Former Celtic player is wasted in English Championship, feels Bannon. By Aidan MacDonald. Sheffield Wednesday midfielder Barry Bannon feels that Celtic hero Tom Rogic is wasted in the English Championship. The former Scotland international made clear on social media that he feels the 29-year-old could be playing at a much higher level. He tweeted, "Tom Rogic, what a lovely player to watch, wasted in the champ." The Australian opened his West Brom account with a lovely outside of the foot finish against Sunderland. It has taken the ex-Hoops playmaker some time to get it going at the Hawthorns, so much so that he missed out on Australia's World Cup squad. But he appears to have found his mojo again after his superb strike away to the Black Cats. After the game, Baggies boss Carlos Corberán made clear he thinks that the Socceroos midfielder is back to his best. "I think the performance of Rogic, maybe in the last 2 games before the break and during the period of training, has been excellent," he said. "His performances have been excellent, and after training and working hard, he can perform better in the football pitch." From one player who has left the club to another who could also be on his way out, Scott Robertson is reportedly set to leave Celtic after being informed he won't be offered a fresh contract. It's claimed the 21-year-old could even depart the club next month, with Ange Postecoglou not seeing a future for the player at Parkhead. Robertson had been in Australia with the Celtic squad during the World Cup break, but in the Daily Record report, he will leave the club by summer at the latest when his contract expires. And it could be before then, with his former teammate Scott Brown credited with an interest in taking the talent to Fleetwood in January. St Mirren have also been linked with the midfielder. However, Stephen Robertson previously stated there would have to be outgoings to accommodate any new signings. It suggested Robertson, who made his debut for Celtic in the Europa League aged 18, will make a decision on his next move in the coming weeks. And that report was by Aidan MacDonald. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 13th of December 2022, from the sports section, Galatasaray evaluating Ridvan Yilmaz as Rangers scouting confirmed. Article by Mark Walker. Galatasaray boss Okan Buruk has admitted Rangers fullback Ridvan Yilmaz is one of 3 players the Turkish Giants are monitoring. The international left-back was signed by Giovanni van Bronckhorst in a £5.3 million deal from Besiktas in the summer, but he has to contend at being a backup for World Cup semi-finalist Borna Barisic, and has made just 2 league starts since joining. His agent, Nektek Ergizin, insisted last week Yilmaz was happy at Rangers and had no intention of returning to his homeland yet. But reports in Turkey have suggested that Istanbul side are preparing an offer to land Yilmaz on a 6-month loan deal, which would include an option to buy. Our manager Burak has revealed Yilmaz is on his radar as he prepared his team for the resumption of their season at a training camp in Antalya, after name-checking the Rangers man, along with the other reported targets, Westerlo's Haile Agbunar and Brighton's Deniz Undav. He said, "As yet, we haven't made a formal move for any player, but we're watching a lot of them. With regards to the ones mentioned, Ridvan Yilmaz, Haile Agbunar and Deniz Undav, They're all good players, and we are evaluating all of them. We have all of their matches followed. Perhaps things will become more clear in January, but we have not had any meeting with any of them at the moment. However, Yilmaz's representatives insisted he would not be returning to Turkey so soon after signing in Glasgow. It should not be forgotten that Ridvan's transfer process was not very happy this summer, his agent told Gazette Damga. This is a project. We stand behind this, both me and the player. We did not take Ridvan to Europe to return him to Turkey after 5 months. Yilmaz has played 7 times for Rangers so far this season. He is featured in the Champions League, Scottish League Cup and the Scottish Premiership. The fullback is currently sidelined with a hamstring injury. And that report was by Mark Walker. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 13th of December 2022, from the sports section, Ian Cathro admits Harry Souttar could have been shown for Scotland. By Matthew Lindsay, chief football writer. Ian Cathro reckons Scotland missed out on a top-class international centre-half by not handing his former protégé, Harry Souttar, for a full international cap. Cathro was delighted to see the Stoke City defender perform so well for Australia at the Qatar 2022 finals and helped the Socceroos make it through to the last 16. He worked with the Aberdeen-born Souttar, the younger brother of Rangers and Scotland player John, during his time as the head of the Dundee United Youth Academy. The 6'6" 24-year-old, who's now been linked with a £25 million move to the Premier League, chose to play for Australia because his mother hails from Port Hedland. But he represented his homeland at under 17 and under 19 level before switching allegiances, and Cathro feels he would have been a potent weapon for the current manager Steve Clarke. I don't know exactly when that happened because I remember him playing in the youth teams, he said. Obviously something has happened after that. There can be lots of reasons why people make those sorts of decisions. It could be a special connection or a reason in the family. I'm not privy to that, so I don't know. But he's certainly a player that would make the team better. Asked what it felt like watching Souttar play for Australia and Qatar, Cathro said, I'm just pleased for him and pleased for his family. It's nice when there are stories and you know everything that took a player to that point. We go back a hell of a long time, and I know everything he and his brother and his family did to give both of them the opportunity to develop as they have. These moments are nice to reflect on. I'm just pleased for him. I'm happy for him and his family. And that report was by Matthew Lindsay. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 13th of December 2022, from the sports section, Jota filleted in bizarre Celtic rant on Champions League celebration. Report by David Irvin. Former Celtic striker Charlie Nicholas has filleted Jota as he launched a bizarre rant on the winger over his Champions League display and celebration against Real Madrid. The Portugal attacker netted a stunning free kick at the Bernabeu as a consolation in a 5-1 defeat at the Champions League group stage. Jota then celebrated the special moment with the travelling Celtic support as emotion washed over his face. He later branded the goal in celebration as one of the best moments of his life, and his family watched from the stands. But Nicholas has hammered Jota over the celebration and comments in the aftermath of the match. He called the winger's performances into question and stated he wouldn't be surprised if Ange Postecoglou has spoken with Jota over his displays, as he claimed that it would be no surprise if the Celtic boss was slightly disappointed with the fan favourite. In his Scottish Daily Express column, Nicholas wrote, Some pundits and supporters talked him up to start at the Champions League level, but I wasn't among them. Boss Ange Postecoglou may even have been slightly disappointed with him, although I accept his injury didn't help as Celtic crashed out in the group stage. He might have scored a late consolation goal in a 5-1 loss to Real Madrid in the Bernabeu, but I didn't like it when he said it was the best moment of his life. Okay, he netted against Real, and I never got that opportunity. Not many people do, and while I'm all for celebrating goals, it doesn't really matter when you're 5 down at the time. I would be shocked if Ange hasn't spoken to Jota what he expects from him at Celtic. It is okay doing well domestically, because that is what he's here for and why the Aussie manager bought him. But you need so much more at the top end in continental competition. I expected Jota to embrace and shine in the Champions League, but it didn't really happen for him. Nicholas went on to demand that Jota produce more for Celtic and make good on his obvious potential. He added, former boys boss Gordon Strachan and a few pundits said he played really well in the first game against Real Madrid at home as the Spanish side left with a 3-0 victory. I did not, as I don't believe he did enough when he had the ball. Celtic must get him to produce more. That is a question mark against him. There is no doubt the potential is there. He has to concentrate on returning to the form he showed in the first couple of months, but manage it over a full season. And that report was by David Irvin.
Glasgow Evening Times on the 14th of December and the sports section. Andy Halliday opens up on Hearts' brawl with Almeria by Ewan Payton. Andy Halliday has opened up on the angry exchanges between his Hearts teammates and Almeria's players during a recent friendly. Footage emerged of Hearts and Almeria players brawling during a mid-season bounce game in Spain. With the Jambos down 1-0 to the La Liga outfit on December 4, Alex Cochrane kicked the ball away from his opponent as one of the Spanish players went to take a free kick. This incited trouble, though, as in retaliation, an Almeria player grabbed Cochrane's neck and pushed him away, before most other players got involved to break up the bust-up. Nielsen pulled his players off the park as a result, as the game was abandoned. Now, speaking to Open Goal, Halliday has delivered more detail on what happened. The Hearts player said, the ref gave no fouls for any tackles for about 20 minutes. The boys came up and elbowed Alex, didn't give a foul, played on. Alex has got a tight with one of those wee petulant ones where he just kicked it away. The centre-halves come flying over and shoved him onto the deck. Fellow Jambos star Lawrence Shanklin said Neil's side laughed about the incident in the changing rooms. Shanklin added, we were just laughing when we got back to the dressing room. With the initial incident with Alex, if that's where it stopped, then nothing would have been made about it. It was the boys' reaction to that by charging over and sort of pushing Alex by the throat. You can't really have that sort of thing happening to your teammate, so everyone rushes over to sort it out. It was done after that. That was by Ewan Payton. Glasgow Evening Times on the 14th of December and the sports section. Beaming Barry Ferguson salutes old school Rangers suits return by David Irvine. Barry Ferguson has hailed Michael Beale for his immediate old school decision to require Rangers players to wear a suit and tie on match days at Ibrox. The new Rangers boss revealed players would follow the traditions of the football club with suits worn before home matches during his reign. Speaking as he was announced as manager, Beale confirmed, I know the traditions and it's a traditional football club. It's an institution. As we modernise football, I think some of the traditions are really important. The players are hearing this first. They are going back to wearing suits on match day as well as when we are at home. I think it's important we live in the traditions of the football club, and this is a club when you come in you fit to those traditions and try to enhance them as you go on. And Ferguson reckons the decision is massive, as he admitted he was beaming with pride when he found out about the return to the suit requirement. The former Ibrox captain insists wearing a suit on match day at Ibrox in a statement about standards and shows Beale understands the club. In his Daily Record column, Ferguson commented, you might think it's daft, but Beale ordering the Rangers squad to turn up suited and booted for home games from now on is massive in my eyes. Wearing a suit, collar and tie, and, of course, the brown brogues isn't going to score you a goal when the match starts, but it is a statement about standards. It would appear the manager gets what the club is all about, and he's trying to install the values that, to me, were part of being a Rangers player from the minute I first walked through those famous front doors in Edmiston Drive as a 15-year-old apprentice. On match days, I would be the hamper boy and cleaning up after the games and all that kind of thing. But I used to see the likes of Richard Gough striding through those doors wearing that suit with obvious pride. And look at that said, we mean business today. I loved it, and it's right up my street that Beale has brought back the tradition because it's all about standards, and it's what I wore on match days at Ibrox throughout my entire playing career at the club, under Walter Smith, Dick Advocat, Alex McLeish, and then Walter again. I'm not sure when the players were allowed to wear tracksuits instead of club suits, and I totally understand that when they are playing away from home and travelling has evolved. But for me, it's great that the new manager has reintroduced it at Ibrox. That was by David Irvine. Glasgow Evening Times on the 14th of December and the sports section. Celtic ace Giacomakis, I hope I pronounced that right, in potential mega money move to Saudi Arabia by Ewan Payton. Celtic car Giorgos Giacomakis could be offered a mega money move to the Middle East in January, according to a report. It emerged at the end of last month that Greek striker was set to leave the Scottish champions after a breakdown in contract talks. The hitman penned a 5-year deal when he first joined the club last summer. He scored 17 goals in his debut campaign in Scotland, and it's been claimed that his terms were due to be improved if he proved to be a success at the hoops, as he did. Reports previously suggested that Celtic are not willing to agree to Giacomakis' demands, and so he appears to set leave for pastures new. Now, according to the Scottish Sun, all rich teams in Saudi Arabia are attracted to the 28-year-old. It's also been said that clubs in England and Germany are keeping tabs on him. The report states that Celtic will likely play hardball over any transfer fee for the striker, with Giacomakis still on a long-term deal. Giacomakis could be involved when the Hoops return to the Premiership action against Aberdeen in Pittodrie on Saturday at lunchtime. Meanwhile, Tom Rogic has been hailed as excellent by West Brom manager Carlos Corberán following his first goal for the club. The former Celtic star set the Baggies on their way to a comeback win over Sunderland on Monday night. The Australian international scored the equaliser at the Stadium of Light in the Championship clash. With a wonderful finish, the 29-year-old beautifully guided the ball into the far corner of the net with the outside of his foot on 70 minutes. That was by Ewan Payton. Glasgow Evening Times on the 14th of December and the sports section. Fan ownership pioneer on how protests sparked a Partick Thistle putsch by Matthew Lindsay. The supporter who launched the fan takeover of Partick Thistle has welcomed the resignation of 7 board members this week, following months of bitter off-field unrest, and predicted a bright future lies ahead for the Firhill club under their new hierarchy. Paul Goodwin, the former head of Supporters Direct Scotland, who advised Dunfermline, Hearts, Motherwell, Morton and Stirling Albion on community ownership, first approached the late Eurominions lottery winner Colin Weir about gifting his major shareholding in the Jags to his fellow supporters back in 2019. Goodwin was astonished in August when the Three Black Cats Limited, 3BC, a shelf company which then chairman Jackie Lowe was a director of, decided not to hand Weir's 55% stake to the Jags Foundation, a community interest company set by fans. And he was, along with many of his fellow supporters, perplexed when 3BC then announced the PTFC Trust, a hitherto anonymous group which held a 19.28% shareholding, had been chosen as the recipients. Lowe and 6 other directors, including Thistle great Alan Roth, stepped down this week following angry protest outside Firhill at the Scottish Cup game against Kelty Hearts last month, and hit out as the false narrative over fan ownership. However, Goodwin has claimed their departure was inevitable, welcomed the appointment of 2 PTFC Trust members and 1 Jags Foundation member to the board, and expressed hope they will be able to deliver the model which Weir had wanted. He compared the exit of the former directors to the ousting of the old Celtic board in 1994, following a prolonged campaign by their Parkhead club's disgruntled fans, and stated that better times lie ahead for Thistle. The power dynamic at any football club is all dependent on the shares, he said. As soon as the shares went into the vehicle, PTFC Trust, and we all know it wasn't the right vehicle, then the board had no moral authority to run the club. It was an interim board that was put in place when Colleen Weir's money was used to purchase the club. It was a temporary board. What they offered wasn't even a version of community ownership. Effectively, what they were saying was, you can have the shares, but you can't have the influence what we do as a board. You can't have half community ownership or quarter community ownership. That is stupid. In the conversation that I had with Colin Weir's lawyers, they indicated he wanted a model similar to the Wells Society, where fans select a board of qualified people who are, if they believe they need to do so, able to add extra experience. Goodwin added, now the people who sit on the board and run a football club not owning the majority sharing is by no means unique. The big difference this time was as soon as the fans got a sniff or democracy, there was no way they were going to stand for it. I think as soon as the protest started, the board members realised that it wasn't, as Alan Roth had suggested, 30 people in the canal bank. I think the vast majority of Thistle fans thought this doesn't smell right. The AGM was the trigger for it. At the last minute, they changed it. Rather than have votes on each individual board member, the whole board had to be voted in or nothing at all. To be honest, I expected them to tough it out longer than they did. But as soon as fan protests start, they just can't take it. History shows what exactly the same thing happened at Celtic when the Kellys and the Whites were in power. Goodwin, the co-founder of the Scottish Football Supporters Association, was pleased when he learned that PTFC Trust representatives Richard Beastall and Fergus McLennan and Caroline Mackey of the Jags Foundation had joined Duncan Smiley on the Thistle board this week. He is optimistic that the Trust and the Foundation will be able to work together amicably and deliver the kind of community ownership model with which lifelong supporter Weir had been eager to see before he passed away in 2019. The Jags Foundation have got nearly 1,000 members paying money in each month, he said. They are a legitimate one-member, one-vote community ownership organisation. They are democratic and their communication is spot on. They are superb. They have done a brilliant job. They are an exemplar, just like the Wells Society, the St Mirren Independent Supporters Association, and the Foundation of Hearts. The Trust was there beforehand, but it is not a fans' organisation. It is just a vehicle to hold shares. It will be very hard to close it down now, but there is no point in them creating a fans' organisation when one already exists. I think the Trust realised that there was only one way forward. I see it remaining as a vehicle that holds the shares. But I think all of the kind of Wells Society, Foundation of Hearts activity will be done through the Jags Foundation, which is great. They have just had elections. They have had a vibrant and talented board. There can be no worries about it. I think a corner has been turned. Goodwin dismissed the swipe which the outgoing board members made against the fans who protested about the Jags Foundation not receiving the majority shareholding, and rubbished the suggestion that their actions were impacting on the performances of Ian McCall's side. What is the false narrative, he said. Community ownership is the owners of the shares having the ability to say who is running the club on their behalf. What Jackie Lowe and her board were offering was not community ownership. The Jags Foundation have nearly 1,000 members paying money in every month. Jackie didn't want to know. Why? We're coming up to the January transfer window. The club could use it to get players in. I can't see any way back for the old board, to be honest. The shares are in the Trust, and the Trust have now cozied up to the Foundation, which is good to see. There is a positive way forward, and they can pull all of the unrest to bed. In the fullness of time, they will be operating just like Hearts, Motherwell and St Mirren. I have huge confidence in them. They have quality people involved. I'm really comfortable with the people who are leading it. There are enough smart, clever people involved. The manager and his players are a step removed from it all. I don't think it will make any real difference to them. I don't think it had any impact on the park. As soon as the whistle goes, they don't give a monkeys. That was by Matthew Lindsay. The Glasgow Evening Times on the 14th of December and the sports section. Thrilled after inspiring Argentina to World Cup final place. Lionel Messi beamed with pride after his magical display inspired Argentina to resounding victory against Croatia and secured their place in the World Cup final. One of the greatest players in football history, the 35-year-old put in a man-of-the-match display in Tuesday's Lusail Stadium semi-final against the 2018 runners-up. Messi converted the first half spot kick and watched Julian Alvarez end a strong solo run with a cool finish before the skipper showed the incredible nous and skill to tee up the Manchester City forward to wrap up a 3-0 win. Argentina will return to Lusail to face France or Morocco on Sunday, when their captain can crown a glittering career with glory in what looks to be his last appearance on the world stage. Well, what I can say is I'm enjoying this a lot, 35-year-old Messi said, with a smile. I'm feeling really good. This is what we've been doing in every match. The previous match was a big sacrifice, and we went into extra time. That wasn't easy. Today we were tired, but we pulled our strengths to earn this victory. We played very well. We knew that we would play this way. We prepared this a lot because we knew they wouldn't have the ball, because we would need to run in this match and then keep our chances. So, as I say, I think we prepared this match in a very good way, as we always do. And, personally, I can say that I feel very happy in this whole World Cup. I'm enjoying it a lot, and luckily enough I'm able to keep my whole squad to make things happen. Messi is at his 5th World Cup and was part of the Argentina side that lost the 2014 final in extra time to Germany and the Maracana. The 35-year-old praised this very intelligent squad and excellent technical staff in Qatar, where things had started with a shot 2-1 defeat to Saudi Arabia in the same venue that will host Sunday's final. I would say that the first match was a hard blow for all of us because we had been unbeaten in 36 matches, Messi said. To start in such a way in a World Cup was a really hard blow. We didn't think we would lose against Saudi Arabia, and to start it in such a way was an acid test for this whole squad. But again, the squad proved how strong we are, and then we won the other matches. It was very difficult, what we did, because every match was a final, and this entails a mental load because every match was a final for us. We were aware that if we didn't win, then things would be more complicated for us. We have played 5 finals. Luckily, we have been able to win the 5 finals, and I hope this will be the same way for the final game. I would say that internally we were confident that we would make it because we know what we are capable of as a squad, as a team. Yes, we lost in the first match due to fine details, but from then on that really helped us to be stronger and to be able to grow even more in this tournament, and also to grow internally as a squad. While Lionel Scaloni's side progressed to the final, 2018 runners-up Croatia have to dust themselves down for Saturday's third place playoff. Head coach Zlatko Dalic, who confirmed he would stay on for the 2024 Euros, said, "I would like to congratulate the Argentinian team for winning the semi-final. I would like to thank our boys and players for everything they've done in this match. Now we need to pull together, get back to our feet and try to win the third place." There's no author for that one. Okay. The Glasgow Evening Times on the 14th of December in the sports section. Rangers vs Hibs, TV channel, live stream and kick-off time by Ewan Payton. Usually this fixture requires no added spice. However, in what will not only be the first Premiership match in 4 weeks after the World Cup break, Michael Beale will make his managerial debut as Rangers gaffer. The 42-year-old will take to the Ibrox dugout this midweek as his side welcome Hibs. It will be his first game in charge of the club since he replaced Giovanni van Bronckhorst at the helm of the club in late November. Here are all the details you need to know ahead of this huge encounter. When is Rangers vs Hibs? Rangers take on Hibs tomorrow on Thursday, December 15. The game kicks off at 8 p.m. It will be played at Ibrox, Glasgow. Is Rangers versus Hibs on TV, and can I live stream it? Yes, thankfully this game will be shown on live TV. Sky Sports Football and Sky Sports Main Event will broadcast this tasty showdown. Coverage on the former begins at 7 p.m. Sky customers will be able to live stream the match via Sky Go. Team news for Rangers versus Hibs. The hosts are expecting Connor Goldson and Ben Davis to return to training this week. However, this game will come too soon for them. Beale will also be without Tom Lawrence, Ianis Hagi, John Suter, Philip Helander and Ridvan Yilmaz due to injury. Borna Barasic will miss out too, with the left back still on World Cup duty with Croatia. Martin Boyles is definitely out for Hibs, having been ruled out for the remainder of the campaign. Aidan McGeady and Kevin Nisbet could feature after gaining minutes in recent friendlies. That was by Ewan Payton. Glasgow Evening Times on the 14th of December in the sports section. Scottish FA ban heading day before and after matches in new guidelines by David Irvin. The Scottish FA has announced new heading guidelines in the adult game, banning repeated heading on the day before and the day after matches. A new case study carried out by the Hampden Sports Clinic and the Scottish FA analysed data from men and women's matches to support the fresh recommendations. It stated that training exercises which could involve repeated heading of the ball should be limited to one session per week. Similar activities should not take place one day either side of a match day, and clubs should plan and monitor heading activity to reduce the overall heading burden. The new guidelines follow consultation with key groups, with 50 professional clubs across the men's and women's games, PFA Scotland, and the Coaches and Managers Association involved in the research. Scottish FA also surveyed SPFL and SWPL clubs on heading practices in professional football, with a follow-up survey showing 70% backing for heading guidelines to be introduced. Another subsequent survey carried out alongside PFA Scotland found a 64% majority of players believed heading should be limited in training. USFA guidelines on heading. Training exercises which could involve repeated heading should be carried out no more than once a week. Training exercises which could involve repeated heading should not take place on MD-1 or MD+1. This includes activities such as crossing and finishing and set-piece practice. Clubs should plan and monitor heading activity and training to reduce the overall heading burden. The guidelines come after Glasgow University study found that former footballers were 3.5 times more likely to die from brain disease. Scottish FA Chief Executive Ian Maxwell cited the study as a catalyst for a radical rethink of football guidance and suggested the new rules could help shape guidelines around the world. Maxwell said the historic University of Glasgow study FIELD, which found an increased risk of neurodegenerative disease in retired professional footballers compared to a matched population control group, has been a catalyst for a radical rethink of football guidance, starting in the youth game with the introduction of the heading guidelines for children between 6 and 17 in 2020. The Scottish FA said at the time that this research should shape the thinking in the adult game, not just domestically but across the world. I'm grateful to everyone in the professional game, clubs, coaches and managers and players for contributing to the latest research, which has culminated in these new guidelines. It is our intention that these guidelines will be embraced and implemented with immediate effect. The publishing of today's guidelines represents our ongoing commitment to player welfare. Dr. John McLean, Scottish FA Chief Medical Consultant, added, "It is important to reiterate that while the FIELD study was not designed to identify the causes of this increased risk, both head injury and heading have been suggested as possible contributing factors to the neurodegenerative disease." While the research continues to develop, what we already know about heading and its effects on the brain suggests that there is measurable memory impairment lasting 24 to 48 hours following a series of headers, and that brain-related proteins can be detected in blood samples for a short time after heading. Scan changes have also been reported in footballers that may be linked to heading. Therefore, the goal is to reduce any potential cumulative effect of heading by reducing the overall exposure to heading in training. Scotland was the first country in the world to have a single set of concussion guidelines for all sports, and the If in Doubt, Sit Them Out campaign is now widely recognised and implemented across all sports. The National Sports First Aid course aims to provide coaches and parents with the knowledge to recognise and remove players who have sustained a possible concussion, with the Advanced Sport Promote course educating doctors and physiotherapists in the professional game. Concussion recognition and management is also an integral part of the Scottish FA Coach Education Programme. And Scottish FA Chief Football Officer Andy Gould commented, there already exists a lot of data around in-match heading, but this latest research has been invaluable in understanding the extent of heading load within the training environment. I am grateful to the clubs, managers and players for providing us with the information and perspectives required to facilitate an informed and data-driven discussion, which has culminated in the publication of guidelines designed to protect the safety and well-being of our players. That was by David Irvine. The Glasgow Evening Times on the 14th of December and the sports section. Torino holds talks with Celtic as Serie A clubs chase Josip Juranovic by David Irvine. Torino have reportedly held preliminary talks with Celtic over a possible January transfer swoop for Josip Juranovic. It's claimed the Italian side have made contact with Parkhead Chiefs over interest in the highly rated right back, and there's thought to be plenty of interest in the Serie A, with Torino not the only club from the league keen on Juranovic. Transfer journalist Gianluca Di Marzio claims Juranovic could exit Celtic next month, with major interest forming in his services. Juranovic has impressed with Croatia at the World Cup this month, on top of his excellent debut season and more at Celtic. And Di Marzio has suggested Serie A could be a destination for Juranovic, with the possibility of seeing him leave already in January more concrete. Torino are the club to reportedly recontact Celtic over a possible transfer, but talks are claimed to have only reached a preliminary stage. Juranovic is still a key figure at Celtic and is under contract with the club until 2026, having signed a lengthy deal when he joined last summer. Chris Sutton urged Celtic to demand a serious fee of up to £25 million if they are to sell Juranovic in January. But Ange Postecoglou has already added to his defensive ranks, with Alistair Johnson and Yuki Kobayashi officially joining the club next month. Canada international Johnson, who played against Juranovic at the World Cup, has been touted as a possible replacement for his current Celtic teammate, while Kobayashi is a left-sided central defender who Postecoglou moved quickly to sign from the J-League. Juranovic's performance against Brazil was seen across the world. Why shouldn't Celtic be able to ask for big money, said Sutton in his Daily Record column. I believe they should try to keep him until next summer, as he's such an important player and Celtic have a title to be secure. But if circumstances dictate that he is to go next month, it should be for a premium rate. Of course, the two biggest aspects are maybe the fact he is playing in Scotland and the fact he is 27 years of age. I'm not comparing them as players, but Kieran Tierney, a fullback, left Celtic to join Arsenal for £25 million. Yes, Kieran was younger, but Juranovic is now going to have a World Cup semi-final on his CV. He and Croatia might even win the tournament. That was by David Irvine. The Glasgow Evening Times on the 15th of December and the sports section. Bitter Veerman launches scathing attack on very mediocre Rangers by Mark Walker. Former Rangers target Joey Veerman has launched another attack on the Ibrox side by labelling them as very mediocre despite knocking his PSV Eindhoven team out of the Champions League. Rangers eliminated the Dutch side in the Champions League qualifiers at the start of the season, but went on to have a nightmare campaign where they bagged an unwanted record as the worst team ever in the group stages of the competition. Veerman was wanted by Rangers a year ago, but opted to sign for PSV in a £5 million deal instead of the Ibrox side when he left Heerenveen. And in a review of PSV's season so far, the 24-year-old admitted he was still not over losing to Rangers 1-0 in the Netherlands following a 2-2 draw in Glasgow. He said by far the most terrible moment of the season was losing to Rangers in the Champions League decider. And we lost a team who were very mediocre. But it was our fault. We were at home and failed to do anything about it. Bitter Veerman earlier complained after the second leg that Rangers didn't deserve to qualify. He moaned, "I don't think it's fair that Rangers play in the Champions League and we don't. I don't think they created a single chance in Eindhoven apart from the goal. What did we do wrong? We missed 2 great chances before half-time. We had to score them." That was by Mark Walker. Glasgow Evening Times on the 15th of December and the sports section. Celtic starlet Scott Robert opens up on looming Parkhead exit by David Irvine. Scott Robinson will meet with Ange Postecoglou this afternoon as he prepares for life after Celtic. The midfielder, 21, is set to depart Parkhead with no new contract offer on the table from the club. However, it remains to be seen whether he will leave next month or upon expiry of his contract in the summer. While Robertson will speak with Postecoglou personally today, he admits he was already aware that his time at the club was coming to an end. But the starlet admits he is weirdly looking forward to finding a new club and aiming for regular game time. The Daily Record claimed former Celtic teammate Scott Brown is considering a move for Robertson to take him to Fleetwood, with St Mirren also credited with an interest. Speaking to the newspapers, Robertson said, "I'm weirdly looking forward to getting a new team, facing a fresh challenge and playing regularly. The manager will have a meeting with me on Thursday to tell me what's been decided, but I'm already aware of the situation. My agent told me last week, after he'd been on the phone call with the manager and chief executive Michael Nicholson, and they told him I couldn't be guaranteed game time and there wouldn't be a contract extension next summer. I've missed that feeling of getting ready for a game on a Saturday and gaining that consistency which playing week after week brings. Whether I move in January or in the summer remains to be seen, but I'm excited about what the future will bring. It's about wanting to see if the right club comes along and taking careful consideration of the options out there." That was by David Irvine. Glasgow Evening Times on the 15th of December and sports section. Glasgow Liverpool FC fans wear Christmas jumpers for fundraiser by Morgan Carmichael. A Glasgow-based football supporters club has raised hundreds for a local food bank. Glasgow Reds, a Liverpool football supporters club, raised £600 for the Glasgow North Food Bank last week. The club held a Christmas jumpers night on Sunday, December 11 at the Record Factory in the West End of the city. At the event, members of the sports club wore a festive jumper and donated some money in turn to the Glasgow charity. The team even made £178 of the £600 on the day, thanks to some generous participants. The donation was officially made on Wednesday, December 14. Lee Foley, member of the Glasgow Reds and suggester of the event, told Glasgow Times the night was great. To be able to help a local food bank, especially at this particular time of the year, is always a little more important, especially with cost of living and the other impacts of the festive season has. It means even more to us to do this for local people as well. Lee added that the club are known for doing a lot of fundraising over the years, which has included raising money for Baby Loss Retreat and other local charities. He said it's one of the main reasons why we do what we do. We always ensure that we help it means something to us. We're helping and getting involved. As part of the fundraising event, the club gave away an all-expenses-paid trip to Anfield for the best jumper. One of the attendees won the prize for his Poundland jumper. Lee said the only negative part of the day was the football result, which ended in a defeat for Liverpool against Lyon. As the cost of living crisis deepens, the Glasgow Evening Times has also partnered with dozens of food banks across Glasgow and beyond as part of our Bank on Us campaign. As part of the campaign, paper bags were placed onto every copy of the Glasgow Times on Wednesday, November 30 for readers to fill with non-perishable foods and toiletries. The Glasgow Times will also be raising funds for our Bank on Us toy drive, so that every child in Glasgow can open a present on December 25. That was by Morgan Carmichael. The Glasgow Evening Times on the 15th of December and the sports section. Legal opinion on European Super League case due to be given. A legal opinion due to be given today could shape the future direction of European football. The European Court of Justice's Advocate General in the Super League court case is set to give his non-binding view on whether UEFA and FIFA abused a dominant position under EU competition law when they blocked the formation of the Super League in April last year and in attempting to sanction those involved. If Athanasios Rantos's opinion is that the UEFA did abuse its position, and the final ruling of the court next year agrees with him, it opens the door for rival competition organisers to set up events outside UEFA's jurisdiction in the future. However, a ruling that backs UEFA's right to act as it did could kill off the threat of breakaway competitions for generations to come. The opinion is initially set to be read out in court alongside other judgments and opinions from 8:30 a.m. this morning UK time, before a written version is published in full later in the day. In many previous cases, the court judge's final ruling has closely mirrored the Advocate General's opinion, so it could provide a strong indication of the final outcome. The arguments of both sides were put before a grand chamber of 15 judges at the Luxembourg Court at a 2-day hearing in July. UEFA barrister Donald Slater argued at the hearing that the governing body's right to authorise tournaments was necessary to prevent a free-for-all of conflicting competition formats, calendars and standards, and described the Super League as it briefly existed last year as a textbook example of a cartel. UEFA also cited Article 165 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, TFEU, which refers to the specific nature of sport. UEFA President Alexander Ceferin and his FIFA counterpart Gianni Infantino spoke out against the Super League last year. UEFA and FIFA argued at the hearing that this could give sport an exemption under EU competition law, which would allow the sanctions they imposed on the breakaway clubs. 12 clubs announced themselves as founder members of the Super League late on April 18, 2021, including the Premier League's so-called Big Six. The intention was for the league to contain 15 permanent members, with 5 other clubs invited on a seasonal basis, a format which drew criticism from fans groups, UEFA, FIFA, and even the British government. Within 72 hours, the league had collapsed. 9 of the 12 clubs, including all the English representatives, had withdrawn. A22, a company formed to sponsor and assist in the creation of a European Super League concept, has spent recent months trying to reposition the competition as an open one. UEFA, whose president Alexander Ceferin has described those involved in the Super League as snakes and liars, last year surprisingly agreed to a request for a meeting with A22 representatives, which took place on November 8. However, the meeting ended in fuller acrimony, with European football's governing body taking exception to a statement issued afterwards from A22 Chief Executive Bernard Reichhardt, saying his takeaway from it was that the status quo was satisfactory to UEFA. If there is a takeaway from today, it should be that the whole of European football opposes A22's greedy plan, UEFA said in response. A22 does not claim to represent any club, but Barcelona, Real Madrid and Juventus were the three clubs out of the original Super League 12 who remained committed to the concept. UEFA's statement last month referenced a quip from a Football Supporters Association Chief Executive Kevin Miles during the November 8 meeting that the UK has had as many Prime Ministers in the last 2 months as A22 have supporters of their plans. The statement added, A22 claim not to represent the three remaining clubs. They refuse to define what their alleged new approach is. They claim to want dialogue, but when presented with a chance, they have nothing to say. Real and Barca were warned earlier this month they would bankrupt La Liga and themselves if they pressed ahead with plans for a European Super League. La Liga president Javier Tebas said Madrid and Barcelona have been competing in the league for 90 years. They became big by competing in these competitions. So now, trying to kick the rest of the clubs in a star, I don't think that's fair either. Once the final decision of the court is handed down next year, it cannot be appealed, and the matter will then return to the Madrid Commercial Court, which applied for a ruling to deliver a verdict, in this case being based on the guidance. Glasgow Evening Times on the 15th of December in the sports section. Lenzi Jiu-Jitsu brothers looking to be world's best by Morgan Carmichael. Two brothers looking to becoming the best in the world at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. 8-year-old Leo McLaughlin and his 6-year-old brother Matthew McLaughlin from Lenzi have recently wowed at national and international level competitions. The pair, who have been practicing the martial art for a year and a half now, have continued to strike gold over the last few weekends. Proud parents Ryan McLaughlin, 42, and Marie McLaughlin, 37, talked to the Glasgow Times about their children's success. Ryan said, "They love working hard and getting better. They are so focused and dedicated, and for two little boys, it's something to see. They just love it. They love the friendship that comes with it and the robustness of the sport. They just pack away their medals and think about what is next. They are wanting to become the world's best, and I think they will be." The pair won gold in the English Open at the last weekend of November, which was hosted at the University of East London. Following on from their victory there, both brothers won gold at the British No GI Open at Warwick Uni Sports Centre during the first weekend in December. Additionally, the day before the No GI Open, Leo attended the European Championships hosted by the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation and grabbed gold after fending off German and Portugal competition. Marie said, "As parent to these boys, it's just pride. Them getting gold isn't enough. It is seeing them recognise what they've achieved throughout this time. It makes them so happy, and seeing that is amazing." Ryan added, "The boys think they're little superheroes. That's how they see themselves, and that's exactly how we see them too." However, it is not just recognition from their parents that the boys receive. Ryan said at one of their matches there were some older jiu-jitsu competitors, and they were asking how old the boys were. When they realised how young they were, they told us how phenomenal they are going to be in years to come. That's the best kind of recognition for us, is hearing people say that. Since beginning the popular martial art form, Leo in particular has learned much about his own capabilities and self. Ryan said, "Leo has learned to be able to control himself in situations, and now he knows how to defend himself and help others do the same. Jiu-Jitsu just makes him feel like he belongs." Going forward, the boys have their eyes on the prize with what's to come in the new year. Next year, the pair will be attending the Scottish Nationals in March, as well as the UK Nationals in the same month. However, the big tournament in sight is the Pan Jiu-Jitsu Championship in Florida next summer, which is said to be the largest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament held in North America. To help fund their upcoming competitions, Leah's made a song which subsequently has been uploaded onto Spotify. The boys train at the Grip House on Glasgow's Postle Road and are coached by wrestling coach Cammy Nichol and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach Nathaniel Montgomery. Leo is a grey belt, while Matthew is a white belt. Ryan said people will be hearing a lot about them in the future, I think, so keep an eye out. That was by Morgan Carmichael.
This is from the Glasgow Times on Friday the 16th of December 2022. This is from the sports section. The headline is Aberdeen vs Celtic, TV channel, live stream and kick-off. Article is by David Irvin. Celtic return to domestic action this weekend as Ange Postecoglou's side head to Pittodrie with Scottish football back in action. The Parkhead side last played a competitive match in the 2-1 win over Ross County on November the 12th before the lengthy World Cup break. But the wait is nearly over for Postecoglou and his squad with a tasty clash against Aberdeen awaiting come lunchtime on Saturday. It will be the second time Postecoglou has come up against Jim Goodwin's side this season. The clubs met on the opening day of the Scottish Premiership in July, with Celtic running out 2-0 winners at Parkhead on that occasion. Celtic will be aiming to reclaim their 9-point cushion over Rangers with a win, while Aberdeen will be keen to cement their place in third in the table with a positive result. Here's everything you need to know about Aberdeen vs Celtic. When is Aberdeen vs Celtic? Aberdeen host Celtic on Saturday, December the 17th. The match will be played at Pittodrie. Kick-off is at 12:30pm. Is Aberdeen vs Celtic on TV? Yes. The match will be shown on Sky Sports. Coverage will begin at 12pm on Sky Sports main event. Can I live stream Aberdeen vs Celtic? Yes. The match can be streamed on Sky Sports through Sky Go or Now TV. That article was by David Irvin. This is from the Glasgow Times on Friday the 16th of December 2022. This is from the sports section. The headline is Bullish Jim Goodwin adamant Celtic can be beaten ahead of clash. This is by Martin McMillan. Aberdeen manager Jim Goodwin is adamant that Celtic are not invincible ahead of the two sides facing off at Pittodrie on Saturday. The Dons currently sit third in the Scottish Premiership, while the Hoops remain 9 points clear at the summit of the league table. It is the second meeting of the two clubs this season after Ange Postecoglou's men won 2-0 on the opening day. Since that match, Celtic have only lost once domestically, with the defeat coming against St Mirren, and Goodwin feels that the Scottish champions loss in Paisley could hold the key for the Dons repeating that feat. He said, the first two fixtures are as difficult as they can get because they are the top two teams in the country at the moment. Celtic have only had one defeat all season up until now against St Mirren away from home, so we've got to take a little bit of encouragement from that result. I thought St Mirren's game plan on the day was excellent. I thought they frustrated Celtic for a large period and deservedly won the game. What that proves is that they can be beaten if you get a number of things right on the day. However, the Irishman is under no illusions that the champions are a quality side, with his men needing to be at their very best to secure victory. The Dons have turned Pittodrie into somewhat of a fortress this season, losing only once domestically, and this is something Goodwin hopes they can use to their advantage in the next two games. We respect them as an opposition. They're a very good side, and they've scored in excess of 50 goals this season already, he continued. But our home form has been excellent, and we have won 6 out of 7 league games at Pittodrie. We've scored the same amount of goals, I think, as Celtic and Rangers have done at home as well. Our defensive record, which is something people have been quick to point the finger at us, and deservedly so, because our away record defensively has been poor, but here at home, we've only conceded 6 goals. That article was by Martin McMillan. This is from the Glasgow Times on Friday the 16th of December 2022. This is from the sports section. Headline is Celtic star Josip Juranovic sidelined through Croatia calf injury. This article is by David Irvin. Josip Juranovic will reportedly miss Croatia's third place World Cup match through injury. It's claimed the right back has suffered a calf injury while on international duty for his country. Juranovic has been ever present for Croatia at the World Cup, but is set to miss Saturday's match against Morocco. Fabrizio Romano reports that Celtic right back will be out for 8 to 10 days through the knock. and it's thought Juranovic played through the pain barrier for 70 minutes against Argentina. The journalist claims Josip Juranovic will not play the last third-place game with Croatia versus Morocco, as he was on the pitch for 70 minutes versus Argentina despite calf injury. He will be back in 8 to 10 days, and the next weeks his future will be discussed as many clubs are keen on signing him. Celtic will be without Juranovic for Saturday's trip to Aberdeen, with the full-back still in Qatar. An injury blow could see him miss matches against Livingston and St Johnstone in the coming weeks. Should Juranovic recover fully within a 10-day window and is back in Scotland after his World Cup exploits, then he could return for the December 28 clash with Hibs. That article was by David Irvin. This is from the Glasgow Times on Friday the 16th of December 2022. This is from the sports section. Headline is Ridvan Yilmaz Rangers injury comeback timeline laid bare. This article is by David Irvin. Michael Beale has revealed the hamstring injury suffered by Ridvan Yilmaz was as bad as it could be. The Ibrox boss admitted the Turkish fullback still faces another 5 weeks on the sideline at least as he continues his rehab. Yilmaz has been out since the 4-1 win over Aberdeen in October, and with Borna Barisic on international duty, Adam Devine has debutised at left back. Barisic is still in Qatar with Croatia at the World Cup, while he will compete in the third place match on Saturday, and Yilmaz won't be ready for a return for another month in a best case scenario, according to Beale. The Ibrox boss explained it was a very, very bad hamstring, as bad as it could be. It was diagnosed at 12 weeks, so we are 6 or 7 into that. So that gives you a bit of a timeline into it, if it goes perfect. It's not ideal. Borna goes away and gets to a World Cup semi-final. Josip Juranovic as well. And I think that's great for Scottish football to have 2 players involved at that level of World Cup. But that gives an opportunity to young Adam, and I thought he took it tonight. Hopefully Borna will be back in the coming games. That article was by David Irvin. This is from the Glasgow Times on Friday the 16th of December 2022. This is from the sports section. The headline is Van Bronckhorst shortlisted for rapid dugout return after Rangers axe. This article is by Mark Walker. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is on the shortlist for a quickfire return to management at FC Utrecht after they sacked their boss for attacking one of his own players. The former Rangers boss was axed last month after a disappointing start to the season, where they trailed Celtic in the league and had a calamitous Champions League campaign where they became the worst team ever to play in the competition. Successor Michael Beale had his first game in charge this week in a 3-2 win over Hibs, and Van Bronckhorst is without a club. But he's been named on a shortlist to take charge at Utrecht, who are currently in 7th place in the Dutch Eredivisie after they sacked Henk Fraser following a bust-up with striker Eamon Younes when he reportedly grabbed him by the throat during a training camp. Dutch TV pundit Jan-Just van Gangelen said Giovanni van Bronckhorst is on the list. Of course, he was fired recently by Rangers, but Vitesse Arnhem has turned out to be a kind of lifeline for Philip Cocu, and Utrecht can also be a lifeline for a big name like him too. Utrecht confirmed they had binned Fraser after the unsavoury incident this week. They stated Henk Fraser is no longer manager at FC Utrecht. An incident on the training pitch in Utrecht in which Fraser showed transgressive behaviour is the reason for this. Fraser admitted he had to go. He said, "This has never happened to me as a coach. It doesn't suit me and it doesn't suit the club. I have damaged the club with this and that hurts many people, including me." Van Bronckhorst is reportedly up against Manchester United defender Jaap Stam, who was last in charge at FC Cincinnati for the job. That article was by Mark Walker.
Glasgow Evening Times on the 19th of December and the sports section. Alfredo Morelos hasn't many attractive options to leave Rangers, by Ewan Payton. Alfredo Morelos doesn't have any attractive offers to leave Rangers. That's according to former Scotland, Celtic and Liverpool legend Kenny Dalglish. The Colombian has struggled for form so far this season and is out of contract at the end of the campaign. He was back with a bang on Thursday night, though, as he netted the winner in the Light Blues 3-2 win over Hibs at Ibrox in Michael Beale's first game in charge. The 26-year-old's future still remains very unclear at this time, with no news over a fresh contract. And while the striker may want to leave the club, Dalglish reckons the Jazz star may not have the desired options available to him. He wrote in his weekly column, Alfredo Morelos scored the winning goal, and that's what he is at the football club to do. For a variety of reasons, he didn't hit the heights in the first half of the season, and he rarely featured under Giovanni van Bronckhorst. Antonio Kolak was regarded as the main striker, and I agreed with Giovanni's assessment on that. There is a working relationship between Michael and Morelos. But that doesn't necessarily mean the manager wants him to stay for the long term, or that the player wants to be part of the plans beyond the season. At the moment, it would be fair to speculate that there doesn't appear to be many attractive offers for Morelos to consider. That could work in Rangers' favour, as the player will need to reproduce the form he showed 2 years ago to get a higher level of interest from elsewhere. So he may well need to stay put for the next 6 months and really show what he is all about. First and foremost, his challenge will be to stave off Kolak and Kemar Roof to be the main striker. Let's see if he's capable of doing that. That was by Ewan Payton. The Glasgow Evening Times and the 19th of December. Ali McCoist makes Kylian Mbappe quip in pointed England dig, by Ewan Patton. As if Scottish fans couldn't love Ali McCoist any more than they already do, the former Rangers and Scotland star today made a hilarious pointed dig towards England during the World Cup final. Commenting on ITV for the showpiece events between Argentina and France, McCoist hailed Kylian Mbappe for netting a hat-trick in the 3-3 thriller. It was a blockbuster final in Qatar, with France coming from 2 down to force extra time and then subsequently penalties. Mbappe scored 3 in the match, becoming the first man to do so since Geoff Hurst in 1966. Of course, that was rapidly touched on by his fellow commentary team, but McCoist couldn't resist a quick response to the statistic. He said, first person to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final where all 3 were over the line. Argentina ran out winners in the end after what must certainly be regarded as the best final of all time. South Americans won 4-2 on penalties as the French suffered heartache from the spot. The victory for Argentina meant that Messi has added the World Cup to his already immense trophy cabinet. He scored twice in the match, with Mbappe going one better to send the game all the way to the death. That was by Ewan Payton. The Glasgow Evening Times on the 19th of December in the sports section. Celtic boss Postecoglou branded incredible ahead of Livingston clash. David Martindale has heaped praise upon Ange Postecoglou ahead of Livingston's clash with Celtic this week. The pair will clash in the new Scottish Premiership ahead of Christmas as Livy finally return to action following the World Cup break. Martindale's side saw their match with Dundee United postponed at the weekend due to the freezing conditions, and they now travel to the Scottish champions on Wednesday night. Ahead of the fixture, the Livy boss has detailed how he feels Celtic has shown his side plenty of respect in their preparations for fixtures. He told Sky Sports, I think you're going into these games and you are not a surprise anymore. The Celtic team, the Celtic manager, are going into our game in a bit more detail. I think Ange has said he doesn't take any game any different from another, but I have found Celtic players with a wee bit more intensity. They are giving us a little more respect, and by giving us a little more respect, it's probably adding to their own game. They are putting a lot more detail into the game. It's brilliant for the staff and players at the club. It's a difficult job. Everyone thinks it's easy sitting in a certain type of shape. I've gone Ibrox, Parkhead, and played wingers 4-3-3 and attacking central midfielders. You fall into a low block because they have that much possession. You only need to look back to the Real Madrid game, the first 60 minutes. They had Madrid sitting in a nearly middle to low block. It shows how dominating they are in games of football. We are more than capable of getting points from these games. We are very competitive, and we will go there and have a game plan and try and take something from the game. Hailing Postecoglou for his job so far at Celtic, Martindale added, I think Ange did an incredible job to win the league last year, but I think he has kicked on again this year. I look at managers, how do you judge them? You judge them on performances, but you also judge them on do they make players better. And I can look at Celtic, hand on heart, and there's not a player in that building he has not improved. I think he has done a fantastic job with them. He has got one of the best midfielders in the country, in Callum McGregor, returning to form. It's going to be a difficult game. That was by Aidan Smith. The Glasgow Evening Times on the 19th of December and the sports section. Celtic's Greg Taylor surprised at Aberdeen's defensive approach by Ewan Payton. Celtic defender Greg Taylor has admitted he was surprised to come up against Aberdeen's defensive approach on Saturday. The Dons sat in a low block for the entirety of the 90 minutes at Pittodrie, which eventually finished 1-0 to the visitors. Jim Goodwin's side entered the encounter with only 19% possession and just 2 shots on goal, both of which were off target. Callum McGregor eventually struck 3 minutes from time on the edge of the box to seal the deserved win for Ange Postecoglou's side. The defensive Dons were heavily criticised for the tactics, while both Willie Miller and Michael Stewart branding the performance unacceptable. And while respecting each team's need to get a result, Taylor admits he was a bit taken aback. He said, if I'm honest, we expected them to come out and have more of a go. But every team has their belief on how they can get a result against us, so fair play to them. They will probably feel because the game went on so long at 0-0 that they were hard done by. But if we analyse the performance, they will realise there was only one team ever going to win the game. I don't know what the possession stats were, but we dominated the ball and the chances. I think it would have been pretty harsh if we had not come away with the 3 points. Taylor was delighted to see returning skipper McGregor get on the score sheet. He added, it is massive to have the captain back, and to get the winning goal and the man of the match award on his first game after injury is not a bad return. Fair play to Cal. He's worked ever so hard on his rehab, and he's come back the same way he started the season. It's not easy to come back after 10 weeks out. A guy like Cal thrives in playing, and he regularly plays 50 or 60 games a season. You know how hard he would find being on the sidelines and looking on. It's important to realise the boys who played when he was out put in such a massive shift because Cal is irreplaceable for us. It was unbelievable from them, but Saturday was about Cal and the team, and he was superb. It's brilliant to have him back. Hopefully he can stay fit for the rest of the season. It's not just one player that could fill the role that Cal has because he's so vital to us. The whole game goes through, he breaks up play, he creates chances and scores. It's such a vital time in this season for him to come back. He's not just a superb player, but he makes everyone around him better, and that's an unbelievable quality for an individual to have in a team game. We had a break and a good strong week in Portugal, and that's probably helped Callum reintegrate with the group. That was by Ewan Payton. The Glasgow Evening Times on the 19th of December in the sports section. Ferencváros chief dampens Celtic's transfer hopes for Aissa Leyduni by Mark Walker. Ferencváros chief Pal Oros, I'll spell this out, Orosz, has dampened Celtic's hopes of landing Tunisia World Cup hero Aissa Leyduni by slapping an £8.7 million price tag on their star man. The midfielder enjoyed an excellent World Cup with the African nation and has attracted a host of clubs to show interest, including the Hoops. A number of French clubs and German side Wolfsburg have been credited with the strongest interest, but Celtic are also keen. The Hungarian club's president, Gabor Kubatov, admitted this week they will be open to selling him. However, the club's chief executive, Orosz, has expanded on that by revealing they could be looking for around €10 million for Leyduni. He said there is interest but no specific concrete offers yet. The price of a player of this quality is high. We are talking around 10 million euros. The important thing for him is he moves to a club that takes him up a level. He deserves to go to a prestigious club. It is also good for us if he moves to a big club, because future players here can see that we are a stepping stone for a big move. Celtic have already signed 2 players ahead of the January transfer window. Alistair Johnston was signed off the back of his impressive performances at the World Cup with Canada. Yuki Kabayashi has also been signed ahead of January 1. That was by Mark Walker. The Glasgow Evening Times on the 19th of December and the sports section. Chris Commons warns Aberdeen against Celtic tactics for Rangers game. Aberdeen risk the fury of their supporters should they deploy the same tactics they did against Celtic when they play Rangers tomorrow. That's the view of former Parkhead hero Chris Commons. The pundit insists there will be uproar in the Pittodrie stands if a repeat is on show from Jim Goodwin's side. Commons says the Dons can't let Michael Beale's side have the run of the place. While Aberdeen defended well to a point, they were totally dominated throughout by Celtic, as Cal McGregor eventually struck on 87 minutes to seal the win for Ange Postecoglou's men. The Dons barely laid a glove on the champions all afternoon, registering only 2 shots the entire game compared to the visitors' 30-odd. And Commons states that a big reaction will be required from the Goodwin's men on Tuesday evening against Rangers, insisting there's no way they will get away with the same approach. He wrote in the Daily Mail, given the intense rivalry that exists between Aberdeen and Rangers, there's no way supporters will accept such a negative approach from the Dons. There would be uproar in the stands at Pittodrie if Goodwin's sides just sit back and let Rangers have the run of the place for 90 minutes. That's pretty much what happened against Celtic at the weekend. It might have taken 87 minutes for Cal McGregor to finally break the deadlock, but Aberdeen were beaten before a ball was kicked. Fans turned up and paid good money, only to be served with 90 minutes of absolute dross from their team. It now puts Goodwin firmly under the microscope, heading into the clash with bitter rivals Rangers at Pittodrie. This can often be a powder keg fixture when these two rivals collide. The fans at Pittodrie will want their team to play on the front door and put pressure on Rangers. Listen, I know what it means to go into a game as underdogs. One of my best nights on a football pitch came when we were written off and had our backs to the wall. But against Barcelona in the Champions League in 2012, I was part of a Celtic side who always carried a threat on the counter-attack and from set pieces. Aberdeen didn't do any of that on Saturday. It was a pathetic performance from the Goodwin side, and ultimately, he has to carry the can for that. We were playing against Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta, and in their absolute pomp in 2012. Aberdeen were playing against a Celtic side who had just come off a month's break and could have been a bit rusty. But the Dons just never had a go at all. They sat back for 90 minutes, barely strung 2 passes together, and failed to register a single shot on target. Regardless of whether you're playing the champions or not, that's just unacceptable for any Aberdeen team, and the fans let Goodwin know about it. This is where he's still very much learning on the job as a young manager. He might have got away with that sort of approach at St Mirren, playing it cagey and trying to nick a point. But Aberdeen fans demand more. This is supposed to be the 3rd biggest club in the country. That shows a little bit of naivety on Goodwin's part that he thinks the fans will settle for watching that type of football. Rangers should be a totally different proposition. Hibs showed at Ibrox last week that there are some serious defensive frailties in this Rangers side. They're still adapting to life under Michael Beale, and the Aberdeen fans will demand that their team press Rangers high up the pitch and try to unsettle them. A double-header against the 2 Old Firm clubs was always going to represent a tough start for the Dons after the World Cup break. But these games become even harder when the team is set out with such a glaring lack of belief. It's a question of mentality, and that's what Goodwin has to rectify against Rangers. That was by Ewan Patton.
And that was this week's Glasgow Times Sport podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes with the publisher's kind permission. Thanks for listening.